We're streaming. We're probably good on YouTube and Twitter. And welcome to episode 65. Sorry if I'm out of breath. I had to run up the stairs just to get here. And it was my 2-year-old wanted to press all the buttons on my laptop because it's a gaming laptop with LCD buttons that, kind of oscillate. So he wanted to press all the buttons. So he thinks it's a toy, not a laptop. Um, Anyway, so it looks like we have on the agenda that in 4 days, 5 days, or depending on where you're at, we're going to have the new UAP hearing. Uh, it looks like it's the same as round one. I mean, the only one I really, really am putting my money on, if anybody can blow this open, is George Knapp, because he's going to be on the guest list. And he was privy. I'm not sure if many know this about George Knapp, but back in between 89 or 90 and 93, after the fall of the Iron Curtain, George was privy to going to Moscow and was getting firsthand documentation and evidence of the KGB UFO program. I mean, along with the stuff with Bob Lazar and all the other stuff that he's there's a lot of stuff that he hasn't put out, that he is privy to, that these other people that are going to be up there. I'm still that I'm calling it a Hail Mary. It, the I'm getting to the point where even if they brought an alien body or a UFO into Congress, I'm not sure if it would change anything. You know? What are your thoughts,
Because you're
Alamo?
not going to be able, yeah, you're never going to be able to, DNA check it or do anything. You're gonna get like they would in Mexico. You're going to have something, you know, pushed out in front of you with no way to like check.
Yeah,
You'll have some
yeah,
guys as the intermediary checking. I mean, it's just not that you can't get to where you need to get to that way. It's just it's weird. It's not a typical, I don't know, like an open scientific setting. You know,
yeah, yeah.
if you really want to get to the nuts and bolts and let's figure out what this is,
Well, and
you're not
there
getting
was
any disclosure right now. I mean, there's no JFK, there's no UFO, there's no Epstein, there's no nothing. It's all bullshit.
yeah, and the Epstein victims are wanting to do open another case against all the people that were shunned away. You know, um,
You know, it's like they know they would know the client list, right? I mean, they can make their own. They say they are, but
well, even
why
if there
haven't you
isn't a
done it
client list,
already?
there's a paper trail and witness testimony. You really
Yeah,
don't need a list. You
and
know,
by now people in the know would know that. And then JFK. Well, that happened like right before I was born, like a month before I was born, and here I am, 60 something years old, and you're still not worthy of finding out what happened in your country 60 something years ago. It's just bullshit.
yeah, yeah.
That's what it is.
That's kind of where I've come to, and I really feel bad for the people that are, you know, um, think that they need to listen to the government or these whistleblowers for, evidence, or try to find out what these things are, or even try to do, contact, when the, lo and behold, if you're really into like the CE5 stuff, advanced radio tech, and astronomy, the skies are not classified, the oceans are not classified. You really, I mean, yes, to scan the bottom of the ocean, you really do need some expensive equipment, but it's a lot cheaper to scan the heavens um, with over the counter tech. And what I've been hearing, is that you'd be more surprised about what you can find than what you can't than if you weren't looking. And I really how should I say this? There aren't as many people into these off the wall hobbies. Like, I was a scanner and along for a long time. I wasn't a ham. I was more into the full spectrum, even to the point of using SDR with directional satellite dishes. I was doing that as well. Um, but that's like a dying, not a dying hobby, but it's more of a niche. More people aren't doing stuff like that. But I'm almost positive, that they're if what I know is true about the techno signatures of the gravity engine that they're using, or the gravity drive. Um, it's somewhere between, I believe, it's somewhere in the mid band of the microwave band, between 1 and 8 gigahertz. There is a techno signature that they do seem to seem to give off, and once you well, if and I believe it's narrow band as well, which means it's not some sort of a byproduct of the engine. There is some sort of communication that they're using via you know, radio transmission. So, you know, I really kind of feel bad for people that don't have the means to do any of this kind of stuff. But you can be looking in your own backyard for your own evidence out there, and you really don't need to look for the government to tell you that it's real. I just you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel bad, but if we left everything up to the government, to educate us about everything, then be some delusional
Yeah, and then you
world.
have to you have to get in that military mind, where something isn't true until it's officially denied. You got to get into reverse think and all with the politics on top of it. That used to be a joke, which really wasn't a joke.
I don't even watch the news anymore, dude. Like, I don't, I don't have time for it. Do you?
Not much. I look at more, alternative sources than anything, and just random feeds that people have. I mean, I get more out of that than anything. I still, run into the channels and see what propaganda is out there, which is just like ridiculous. But that's what they keep feeding you.
Yeah, and I'll look at, like, depending on whether we have a Republican or Democratic president. I've been noticing this. If we have a Democratic president, you will not see them in the top 10 news feeds. If you have a Democratic president, you won't hear shit about it, after the first few months. And this is becoming
Yeah,
a
it's a
trend.
positive press and yeah, positive press versus negative press. I mean, you can see that with Trump. It's like he's probably 80-90% negative in the media. It's like where Biden would have been maybe 60-70% positive, maybe even
Biden was
higher.
just as bad. Biden
So
was
there's
retarded. Yeah.
obvious,
Yeah.
yeah, they propped him up about as far as you can animate a corpse. They got pretty close.
I was actually listening to Hunter's interview on Big Five, or that Channel 5 News, whatever that YouTube channel is, and he's very down to earth, to be honest with you. Even he was pushing
Yeah,
the
it's the one I saw. Yeah, he looked well. He sounded lucid, which means he's probably off the drugs. At least for now, and enough to get an interview done, and then yeah, I mean, I think if you know these people behind the scenes, you might think they're decent people, but I don't know, even if I knew them, and you just look at the politics and all the things they do, it's just like I don't think I could get there.
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah.
I really don't think they are. I mean, for political purposes and all, you need them, but
I'm almost convinced Hunter Biden was working for the CIA at one point.
oh yeah, he's total cover. Well, he's like the liaison to get into the Ukraine, as we were, setting all this up. Well, when did all that Maidan and all that was like 2014, 2013. They're the
Yeah,
ones that set all that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
up. It just, I was, I was really amazed that you could, the CIA essentially could go in there and for whatever they claim it cost them like $4 or $5 billion maybe, they could overthrow the government there right next to Russia and get away with it and set this whole thing up. I was just, you know,
Uh-huh.
I'm just amazed we can do it that easy. Just
We tried to do it in Venezuela twice, so well,
yeah, I mean, and it doesn't always work, but man, there's one time it really worked good for us, and now we're there on their doorstep giving them hell, right? I mean, that's the
Libya.
whole idea. Yeah, well, they're smaller, it's this is like a direct, in the Russians' face, we're finally coming after them after you know 70, 80 years, it's
We'll
like
see.
Patton said, way back. I mean, we had all the tanks and all the guys there. We should have just done it in 45.
Well, it's too late now.
We're a little slow. We're getting there. You have to convince the Europeans. That's always difficult.
What was I gonna say? There was a on the Jesse Michaels show. There was a NASA engineer who did see a CCTV feed of a recovered UFO that we had had in some independent contractor's lab, and it was back in the 90s, which would kind of line up with Lazar's story. But I kind of believe this guy. Um,
It just seems like we would get more of that. It's just in a world of cameras and cheaper cameras and feeds and everything, and hackers on top of it getting into stuff. It's like I just don't see much. It's just the stuff I'm running across. Like there was more disclosure years ago, decades ago, than there is now.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
Despite the fact that they're telling you there's going to be disclosure, it's like they're clamping down on it. That's honestly what I think I'm seeing.
Well, see, this is where I wanted to lead into my other topic, and this is something that I had come on to because I often listen to shows that aren't really off on the beaten path of disclosure or what the government actually does. So I was listening to some guys that do remote viewing and do occasionally work with with government contractors, and they came across this story, and this happened on the internet in like 2008, between 2008 and 2016. There was a bunch of leaks that were going on a very niche forum called like Godlike Productions, and I've known about this for a while. That there are leaks that do happen in obscure. Uh, this is where it gets even stranger. So they have a specific terminology. I think they were calling it Rubicon, and there are ways that the government will release stuff without officially saying that they're going to release it. Release stuff like they'll fictionalize it, and they're doing it for an alternative purpose to see how you'll react, how a larger society will react to it, or a larger audience would, and always put that clause of plausible deniability. This is all bullshit, and I've seen this in the last 5 years, on 4chan, Reddit, a few other ones too. Some more obscure. There was a few on I believe on 8chan as well. Um, well, I'm not going to get into those ones though because it gets into some weird territory. But the I think there are a lot more of this going on than we think, and the one that I had come across was very strange, and it's really off the wall, but like people who had remote viewed the whether this was a bullshit story or not, they don't think so, but they think that they had changed enough of the information that the that enough of it was had there's enough bullshit in there to make it not seem real. The original story is that there was an old supercomputer that was near a black site near a super collider somewhere in Africa that's not known about, and we're receiving messages randomly, which they had later discovered from some sort of parallel dimension. And this went on for between the years of 1994 to like 1999. And um, they don't believe that a lot of it was true. They do believe that that this was a computer that was hooked up to something that was working with particle physics, but not in a place that we would normally think. And were that they believe that they had released this data slowly over this forum mainly because they had reached a bottleneck. They don't understand what the fuck they're looking at. So basically, there was like a bunch of these messages about players. Even if it was released between 2008 and 2016, a lot of these names were not even popular until like even Obama was starting to get mentioned. And if they were dealing with like 94, 99, he was just a senator at that point. There was just a lot of information that you can go back and kind of verify later that makes me seem like this is more plausible than not. But there seemed there seemed to be a this weird fusion date about the um, there's the entity kept on referring to this May 15th date, and they don't know what year that was, and it was supposedly this fusion date. This all this where ours and their reality are close together, and I guess they had put this information out there to see if somebody with some sort of talent or ESP could figure this out because I guess they were stumped as well and couldn't make sense of the data or what the hell they were looking at and probably just had to throw it away. And somebody from the CIA probably picked it up and say, hey, maybe if I just leak a little bit of this, maybe get some more answers out of it because, there might be something to this. The CIA is always into some weird shit. But there was just a lot of weird nuances that were in there that you can kind of look back in between that time frame and then these players start. I think even Trump was mentioned, you know, even before 2016, in these messages.
Well, he ran. I think Trump ran in 2000, maybe as an independent. I mean, you could tell that guy coming up. I mean, he was going to be in the mix somewhere, despite
Yeah,
his denials. You know,
but it's so weird because these leaks were over like an 8 year period. They weren't just like one here and there. I guess they were trying to figure out
yeah.
what the May
Now,
15 day was. Whether
yeah,
anybody would figure this out, and this is not something I would push past the CIA to be doing it to see if somebody else could figure it out because the data was just so weird. You have this,
yeah.
supposedly this entity that claims they're from a parallel dimension, um, is giving you information about your reality about stuff that hasn't happened yet. It's a little weird, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't put not more than the CIA weird. I
No,
don't
and I
know.
mean they if there's any entities that should be looking into this stuff, I don't say not so much the CIA that but the military, is just a
Yeah, I was leaning more towards they changed a lot of what the story to make it sound like bullshit, so it wouldn't reach a bigger crowd. But like the more you start looking into like the names and the timestamps of when these released, it was stuff starts popping up. That's what really kind of blew me out of my chair. Like, why didn't anybody look into this? Well, I mean, it was a kind of a closed forum. You had to register just to get in. And Godlike Productions, was dealing with more of the obscure stuff, like paranormal and all the other stuff. But I don't know. I mean, you can even get into the weird stuff, like stuff like this is not even the weirdest shit I've heard. Like about the scientists that supposedly work on the alien bodies on the in the Fort Detrick, and their philosophy about life. You remember they had this terminology about this event when all sentient life will become raised to some certain level of consciousness. They had some fucking weird alien word for it.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, oh, I didn't. Oh, I didn't. I think I talked about it on the show, didn't I?
Uh, not sure.
Oh, it's okay.
Um,
Yeah, the aliens had some fucking, according to the scientists, had some weird word where they really all they're really doing is kind of like doing this potpourri, fucking hippity dippity shit, fucking raising and creating life forms across the thing to raise their uh, all levels of beings to some sort of level of consciousness to this pinnacle point where we can all ascend to a higher dimension. Some like hippity dippity shit.
ah,
And this was coming from some
well,
guy that's spitting off fucking you know data about the very obscure things about the anatomy and their DNA sequencing to the little ABCG level. So this was like some really in-depth shit. And like
yeah, it does make sense. I mean, if you are a superior race, I mean, if you're at that level, and you would, if you don't have enough people to spread across the universe, you have to work with what's there, right? And so you would be in the business of bringing up the people that are there, to fit in. You would have to, if you're in the business of, creating this even bigger, supposed, well, I guess empire, or collective,
yeah.
you have to raise everybody up. If you just have a bunch of apes running around, well, I'm not saying it doesn't do you any good. There could still be resources there, but
Oh
uh,
yeah.
there's nothing there to work with, right? I mean, so it's an interesting, if you look at it that way, it's like, well, that would be something. I mean, that's something we would do if we were in that business, right? If we could ever get to that level, I mean, we would be doing that.
That's what I'm saying. If you start getting into the weirder the story, the probably more real it is. Like that's where I'm starting to get at. Like when it comes to this, you know, any of this stuff. If it sounds so weird,
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah.
probably
That's it.
real.
Yeah, the Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, that just blows like. I mean, it's just so outrageous. Everybody kind of just turns their head, but it's just like, well, wait a minute. It's like that's a portal, right? I mean, that's something you should be interested in.
Oh yeah, and
It's
they
just
didn't tell you
typical
about the
how
hitchhiker
backwards things
effect,
are.
right? The hitchhiker effect. So people
The
who
hit.
go there will have the activity come to their house.
Oh,
You didn't hear about that? You
yeah.
didn't know about that?
No,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
no, no.
That's a big one, yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. Well, that's what I'm convinced. It's like, I mean, we're all going to die. And if we ever are told or figure, what's actually going on in this world that we were in. I mean, it's going to be weirder than we suspect.
Well, it's gonna get weirder because like apparently Three Eye Atlas, according to some astronomers, is it's been verified quite a few times that it's made of an alloy, which means it's not natural. Did you hear about that one?
No, not yet. I've heard something about it being has CO2 gas cloud around it, and I mean, I hadn't heard anything unusual, no, about being
I,
metallic or
I
anything.
I've the angry astronaut was kind of backing up some pretty good data that it's made of an alloy, which means it's partially artificial. I mean, if you wanted to send a deep space probe, why not put it on a rock? You know?
Yeah, and this one's coming, kind of out of nowhere. I mean, it's been traveling a long time. It's
That's what I mean. I mean, that's like the
uh,
perfect thing. Just throw it on just throw it on a rock, That'll
yeah,
withstand the test of
yeah.
time.
You're sending something in, that looks normal. It's not
Yeah.
quick flyby. Take a bunch of pictures. Don't
Well,
send out any
they've been
signal.
telling NASA, hey, let's put a probe on it, and they won't do it. They won't. They won't. They won't. They.
Uh, yeah, it could be a speed thing. I mean, this thing's coming in really fast. I'm not saying you couldn't get there, but I don't know. And then get it done in a short amount of time. I don't know. If anybody could do it, SpaceX, but it's just, getting it together that fast. I think that's a problem.
Hey, we did Apollo 13. you know,
Yeah,
I mean that was thrown together, and then there was
yeah. Well, that was a space race. Well, that was a political. See, we can throw money at political things that have to, they have science involved. Otherwise they don't care. If it was for the space race and political message, well, then they were all for it. That's one thing you don't hear many people talk about like right now is anything space wise, probes or doing anything scientific that way. It's just all a bunch of nonsense, honestly. Bunch
well,
of
a lot of it doesn't.
promises
A
you're
lot
not
of it
going to
doesn't
keep.
make the news if you're not looking for it too. That's a
Yeah,
problem.
and then the way they feed important stuff, on Friday evenings.
Oh God, my kid's crying.
That, uh-oh.
Um, yeah, there was another whistleblower. I'll mention this. There
Let's
was
see.
another whistleblower coming out about this egg that had pulsated on Shine Mountain, kind of near NORAD. And you know what? That is not the first time I've seen footage of a breathing UFO. You know what I mean? It oscillating. Skin oscillating.
Yeah.
I've seen footage of
Oh,
stuff like that that I thought was real, but I haven't shared it out to other people. But it's out there, but I haven't shared it out with my inner circles. But I've seen footage like that before, where I've seen something oscillate, not like a solid craft. And that was believable to me because if you're dealing with something more obscure than a gravity drive, let's say you're dealing with something that is uh, interdimensional, not quite here, not quite there. I'm not talking about like a gravity drive making your own pocket of space within, three-dimensional space. I'm talking something more obscure like using Kluser-Klein particles and jumping from one end of the universe to the other via a higher dimension because the linear x y or whatever thing let's just say higher dimensional space moving from point A to point B is quicker because you are not exact you know what I'm talking about, Alamo.
yeah.
The higher
Yeah.
dimensional
Well,
reality, the
yeah.
distances might not be as far.
Yeah. There should be a better path.
Yeah, and
Some other path. Yeah.
that's kind of what I would want, what I would kind of if you saw like an oscillating three-dimensional object, that's kind of what I would expect you to see if you're dealing with something interdimensional. And was seen at Cheyenne Mountain, which is NORAD from this new whistleblower. Um, Army guy, which is also kind of weird because that's Air Force territory. But
Yeah. There seems to be a shimmering. Just like what do you call those? In the desert. Where you got the hot air, like a mirage. You're getting. It seems like around every effect there's some fringe where you can tell, or fuzziness where you can kind of tell what's going on. And I would suspect that whatever these gravity drives or whatever it is, there's going to be some kind of trail, something left behind, some signature to it that you can tell or detect and tell what it is.
I mean, if we had the right detector, we could start looking around for clues of Klein particles. You know, it's kind of hard. It's hard to detect, but
Yeah.
because you're looking around for something that's not moving the way it's supposed to when you smash. Well, we don't have anything that will detect it. Let's get that far. But we know that they exist because when they were smashing this shit together, there were things that were moving off in directions they shouldn't be moving in. Um,
Mm.
so, which gives evidence that there are more than four dimensions to this reality. Um, but anyway, I gotta put my kid to sleep right now. I can hear him screaming. Um, we'll be back on the
All
18th.
right.
Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. All right. See you then.
All right.